Peace and blessings, family. First of all, before I even start, I want to give all praise to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakah Kwadash. And welcome to another episode of Bible Answers. I'm going to tell you today I'm so excited because guess what? I got my first email with my first question, and I have been doing this for a little bit. So I definitely want to go ahead and just commend all the people who are out there with their channels making videos similar to this. It is a lot harder than it looks. You think people just kind of throw something on real quick and their channels blow up. It takes a lot of hard work. Sometimes something I'm not willing to do, but that is something I've decided I'm going to do. And whether their channel blows up or not, that's neither here nor there. I'm just going to do the work of the Lord, and we're going to just let the chips fall where they may. So I finally got an email with a question, and when you know, it'd be something super controversial, which is good. I don't mind diving into this because it's something that needs to be addressed. Someone sent me an email as soon as I got it. I said, let's go ahead and try to make this happen. So here we go. And the controversial subject that we're talking about today is slavery. Slavery is a big issue in the United States of America, and it's something that we don't like to talk about all the time because it is so controversial. I'll say this, that a lot of times you'll see Christians will not even touch this subject, but believe it or not, a lot of Hebrew Israelites don't touch this subject, which I believe they should if they were to do it in the correct manner. So what am I talking about? First of all, let me read the question. This is from John Henry, and he says, I've been reading the book Stamped from the Beginning. It talks about the history of slavery in America. If the slave masters accepted Jesus as their Lord and Savior, and the Bible condoned slavery, did they go to heaven or hell? Super question. And why do I say that's a super question? Because there's a lot of stuff wrapped in that right there. There's a lot of stuff that's wrapped in that question, and that's some people are not going to be able to see. I'm going to, first of all, I'm not going to make a super long video. I want to kind of make a part 1 and a part 2, and I may even extend it. But first of all, I want to address part of the question before I address the real question. So what he really wants to know is, did those slave masters go to heaven or hell? Okay, right there, that's going to be a very super complicated question if you're not grounded and rooted in the scriptures. But that's not the one I'm going to answer right now. The first one I'm going to answer is, the Bible condones slavery. And I'm going to ask a question with itself. Does the Bible condone slavery? And guess what? I'm going to answer it right now. Truth be told, the Bible does condone slavery. It just does. Now, those of you who are listening, I really hope that you listen all the way to the end, because although the Bible condones slavery, this video may not end the way you think it's going to end. So there's a little catch to this. So for all the people who say, well, I don't read the Bible, I don't trust the Bible because the Bible condones slavery, and anybody who condones slavery has got to be wicked. So I'm going to debunk them today, and I'm going to debunk them with scriptures. But first of all, let's go to these controversial scriptures that people talk about all the time. And it's the verses that Paul uses in Colossians and Ephesians. So we're going to jump to those and see what he has to say. Let's go to Colossians 3:22, and it says, servants, obey in all things your masters according to the flesh, not with eye service as men pleasers, but in singleness of heart, fearing God. And whatsoever you do, do it heartily as the Lord and not unto men, knowing that the Lord shall receive the reward of inheritance, for you serve the Lord Christ. But he that doeth wrong shall receive for the wrong which he hath done, and there is no respect of persons. That's one of them. And then let's go to Ephesians 6 and 5. Servants, be obedient to them that are your masters according to the flesh, with fear and trembling, in singleness of your heart as unto Christ, not with eye service as men pleasers, but as the servants of Christ, doing the will of God from the heart, with good will doing service as to the Lord and not to men, knowing that whatsoever good thing any man doeth, the same shall he receive of the Lord, whether he be bond or free. And you masters, do the same things unto them, forbearing, threatening, knowing your master also is in heaven, neither is there respect of persons with him. So, these are the two biggest scriptures that seem to be a stumbling block for people who don't want to accept the Bible. And I'd just like to say that just first off, that is it's kind of like a willful stumbling block, because a lot of the people who use these two scriptures to disrespect the Bible and say the Bible is not the Word of God are generally people who were not going to believe it anyway. They were going to look for anything to get them out of accepting scripture. So when they say, well, this is the only reason why I don't believe it, that's generally a lie, because when I drop this information today, they're still not going to accept it. They're going to find another reason. So that being said, this is for people who are kind of afraid, and I would say definitely the Hebrew Israelites. It's going to be kind of hard for Christians to use this, because this is not going to necessarily be a good look on Christianity. And why do I say that? And that is because if you go to Exodus 21, it talks about slavery, but it pretty much talks about the rules of slavery. So when you say the Bible condones slavery, this is what I'm talking about. Now, bear with me. We're going to go to two scriptures. They're pretty much similar. They're going to be in Exodus, and they're going to be in Deuteronomy. So let's go to Exodus 21 and 1. Now these are the judgments which thou shalt set before them. If thou buy a Hebrew servant, 6 years he shall serve, and in the 7th he shall go out free for nothing. If he came in by himself, he shall go out by himself. If he were married, then his wife shall go out with him. If his master have given him a wife, and she have borne him sons or daughters, the wife and her children shall be her master's, and he shall go out by himself. And if the servant plainly say, I love my master, my wife, and my children, I will not go out free, then his master shall bring him unto the judges. He shall also bring him to the door, or unto the doorpost, and his master shall bore his ear through with an awl, and he shall serve him forever. And if a man sells his daughter to be a maidservant, she shall not go out as the men servants do. If she please not her master, who hath betrothed to her to himself, then shall he let her be redeemed. To sell her unto a strange nation he shall have no power, seeing he hath dealt deceitfully with her. And if he hath betrothed her unto his son, he shall deal with her after the manner of daughters. If he take him another wife, her food, her raiment, and her duty of marriage shall he not diminish. And if he do not these three unto her, then she shall go out free without money. So that's Exodus 21. Let's go to Deuteronomy 15, which is generally the same thing, just with a different a different spin on it. This is Deuteronomy 15 and 12. And if thy brother, a Hebrew man or a Hebrew woman, be sold unto thee, and serve thee 6 years, then in the 7th year thou shalt let him go free from thee. And when thou sendest him out free from thee, thou shalt not let him go away empty. Thou shalt furnish him liberally out of thy flock, and out of thy floor, and out of thy winepress, of that wherewith the Lord thy God hath blessed thee, thou shalt give unto him. And thou shalt remember that thou wast a bondman in the land of Egypt, and the Lord thy God redeemed thee. Therefore I command thee this thing today. And it shall be, if he say unto thee, I will not go away from thee, because he loveth thee in thine house, because he is well with thee, then thou shalt take an awl, and thrust it through his ear. Ear unto the door, and he shall be thy servant forever. And also unto thy maid servant thou shalt do likewise. It shall not seem hard unto thee when thou sendest him away from thee, for he hath been worth a double hired servant to thee, in serving thee 6 years, and the Lord thy God shall bless thee in all thou doest. Here's a big reason why I read Deuteronomy as well as Exodus. Deuteronomy has a little more information in it. One part of the information is that after 6 years of working, the slave is freed in the 7th year. And not only is he freed, but you got to give him some stuff. You gotta kind of get him on his way. So you've had him as a slave, but you can't just throw him out there into the wilderness, and then he ends up coming back because he can't do anything and he has no substance. This was a big thing, and this is a big reason why this is different. Also, if you look down on 18, it shall not seem hard unto thee when thou sendest him away free from thee, for he hath been worth a double hired servant to thee. So you're going to have some people who say, well, no, it's talking about a servant. This is not talking about a slave. This is talking about a servant. These are the people who are going to be running from slavery in the Bible. It's not. Okay, so what do you call a servant who is sold to a person, who is forced to work for this person and not get paid for it? That's a slave. And then right here it shows you clearly it's a slave, because it says, for he hath been worth a double hired servant. So there's a difference. A servant who gets paid, okay, you can call them a maid, a butler, or whatever, a servant. A servant who does not get paid is a slave. You do it for free. You have no choice. You've been sold to me, and you have no choice in the matter. So that's just for people who are going to try to run from this, because you're going to have, and generally it's going to be some Christians who are going to try to run from this and say, no, this is not talking about slavery. This is talking about servitude. This is talking about slavery. When you are working for a person and they're not paying you, you are a slave, unless you have said to yourself, I choose to do this, and then therefore I guess you're still a slave, but you're a willing slave. But you got to remember, these people bought these people, so there was really no choice in this matter. So I'm just throwing that out there just so people will understand that this is not talking about servants, although the word is similar. It's not. It's talking about slavery. And so here is where the question, at least the question that I pulled from the question, is answered, and it is, does the Bible condone slavery? And it does, but you have to understand, since we went to the law, Paul was a follower of the law. Contrary to what anybody will tell you, Paul didn't keep the law, Paul kept the law. And so when Paul was thinking about the law, and when he was talking about slavery and the servants, this is what he was talking about. This is what he had in his mind, because there are certain rules to slavery. This is why the law is so important. People try to run from the law, but the law is very important because the law makes sense of things. The law makes it to where people can't just do what they want to do. So when people say that the Christian slave master took the Bible and used the words of the Bible and made people slaves because the Bible condones slavery, that is not true. That part is not true, because they did not use the Bible as their reference point for slavery. They used a verse, but had they had used the entire word, then they would have went to Exodus and Deuteronomy and know that you could not keep a slave for the entirety of their life. And not only could you not do it, that you could only keep him for 6 years, and after the 7th year you had to give him the option to leave. And when he left, you had to take care of him. Now, is this what happened in slavery in the United States? Slavery in the United States, and I'm not talking about South America, I'm just talking about the United States. Slavery in the United States was some of the most brutal, hardcore slavery possibly in the history of of known mankind. So brutal, so cruel. And we're going to talk about that in part 2. I'm going to show you some more stuff about that in part 2. But just talking about how it is, slavery is one of the most, in the United States and on this side, was one of the most cruelest crimes ever committed on a people. And so to compare that to what Paul is saying, it's just wrong. And people have got to stop doing that. But people are intellectually lazy. They refuse to go any deeper than that verse, which makes them just as bad as a slave master who used that verse to enslave people. You're just as wrong for using that verse to reject God. It's just plain and simple. When Paul is talking about the servants obeying your masters, he's talking about in reference to how a slave is supposed to be treated according to the law, and we just read the law. So you will see that slavery is not as cruel. I don't want to say it's not cruel or it's not hard, but it's not as cruel when a person is able to be freed after years of service. And not only are they able to be freed, but they're given things to help them start their life with. So this is what context is. A lot of times people want to think that context is just when I scroll up and I read the first 2 paragraphs, and that is part of context. I don't want to take anything away from that. But context is also giving background information on what is going on. That's why we use a lot of precepts, because it gives a lot of background information on what it is we're talking about. If you were to read Colossians and Ephesians just on their own, it would confuse you. You would be confused. But when you're able to go to other scriptures for reference, you're able to see what they're talking about. So Paul is not talking about this hardcore slavery that was here, because that was unrighteous. And like I said, we're going to talk about that in part 2. But I just wanted to deal with this part right here, because a lot of times it's the elephant in the room, and a lot of times it's avoided because it is so hurtful. Slavery in the United States, whether it been from the black Americans, so-called black Americans, to the Native Americans, to the Latinos, any of them who experienced any type of slavery here in the United States, in the West, and even the brothers who or on the other side of the pond who experienced it from some of the Arab countries and Europe. That is not what the Bible is talking about when it's talking about servants. So the next time someone tries to pull that out and say, well, the Bible talks about it condones slavery, you can say yes, but let me give you proper understanding.